The Ghostly Hitchhiker. I've been a truck driver most of my life. It's a lonely job, but I liked it that way. Just me, my rig, and the open road. No distractions, no drama. That's how I thought I liked it. Until one night, in the late 80s, somewhere on a remote stretch of highway in Texas. The road was empty, dead quiet except for the hum of my engine and the soft static of the CB radio, the kind of night that makes you feel like the last person left on Earth. And then I saw her. At first she was just a shadow in the distance, a blur against the darkness. But as I got closer, I saw it was a woman. She was standing by the side of the road, waving both arms like she was trying to flag me down. She looked rough, clothes torn, hair a mess. She was barefoot, shivering, and there was this wild, desperate look in her eyes. My gut twisted. Every instinct told me to keep driving, but I couldn't. What if she was in trouble? What if she needed help? You okay, ma'am?" I asked. She nodded quickly, almost frantic, and told me her car had broken down a few miles back. She begged me for a ride to the nearest town. I wasn't sure about this, but I couldn't leave her out there. I grabbed a blanket from behind the seat and handed it to her. She didn't say much, just whispered, "Thank you." For the first few miles we drove in silence. I asked her a few questions. "Where are you headed? Do you need to call someone?" But her answers were short, vague. She kept her eyes fixed on the road, like she was afraid to look anywhere else. Something about her felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was like she wasn't really there. Finally, she spoke. She turned to me, her voice barely a whisper, and said, "Thank you. You're a good man. Most wouldn't stop." I looked over at her, and she was gone. The seat was empty. The blanket I'd given her, it was folded neatly, sitting there like no one had touched it. My heart stopped. I slammed on the brakes, pulled over, and searched the truck from top to bottom. She wasn't there. She wasn't anywhere. I even checked the road behind me, thinking maybe she'd opened the door somehow, but there was nothing. No footprints. No sign that she'd ever been there at all. I finally made it to the next town. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my coffee. When I told the gas station attendant what happened, he just stared at me. "You saw her, didn't you?" he said, his voice low. I asked him what he meant, and he nodded toward the highway. "She's been out there for years. They found her body in the ditch back in '82. No one knows who did it, but every now and then, someone like you stops to help her, and she always disappears before they reach town." I still don't know what I saw that night. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe it was something else. But I haven't stopped for anyone on the side of the road since. So, the next time you're driving alone at night and you see someone waving you down, think twice, because some passengers never leave. It was 2003 and I was driving from Darwin to Alice Springs. A straight shot through the heart of the Northern Territory, just me, my old sedan, and 15 hours of nothingness. The Stewart Highway is beautiful during the day, wild landscapes, the kind of silence that makes you feel small. But at night, it's a different story. No lights, no landmarks, just pitch black stretching for miles in every direction. I'd been driving for hours, and fatigue was starting to set in. The kind of tired that makes your eyes burn and your mind play tricks on you. But stopping wasn't an option. I wanted to make it to Alice Springs by morning, and pulling over in the middle of nowhere didn't feel safe. That's when I saw him, a man standing right in the middle of the road. He was waving me down, frantic, like he was in some kind of trouble. I slowed down, my heart racing. Something about him didn't feel right. He was too calm for someone stranded in the middle of nowhere. And then I saw it. There was someone else, hiding just out of sight. I couldn't see their face, but I saw the outline. Someone crouched low, trying to stay hidden. My gut screamed at me to hit the gas. I didn't know what was going on, but every instinct told me to get out of there, and fast. I swerved around him, and that's when I heard it. A loud crash. Something hit the back of my car. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the man standing there, holding a rock. He'd thrown it at my car, shattering the back window. I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. All I could think about was getting as far away as possible. I kept driving, the wind howling through the shattered window, glass crunching underfoot. I didn't care about the damage to the car. I just wanted to survive. Every mile felt like an eternity. I kept glancing in the mirrors, half expecting to see headlights behind me. But there was nothing, just the empty road, and the feeling that someone or something was watching me. When I finally reached the next town, I went straight to the police. I told them everything about the man in the road, the figure in the shadows, the rock that shattered my window. The officer listened quietly, but I could see it in his eyes. He'd heard this before. "You're lucky," he said. "You've probably heard of the Death Highway Killer?" I shook my head, confused, and then he told me. Over the past few years, several travelers had disappeared along that stretch of highway. All of them reported the same thing. A man waving them down, asking for help, and then nothing. No car, no belongings, just an empty road and another name added to the list of the missing. I don't know who he was or how many lives he's taken. Maybe they've caught him by now. Maybe he's still out there, waiting for his next victim. But I'll tell you this, if you ever find yourself driving the Stewart Highway at night and you see someone waving you down, don't stop, because not everyone on that road is looking for help, and some of them don't want to let you leave. It was late October 1995. My wife Mary and I were driving home from a weekend trip. We'd spent the day exploring the coast, and by the time we hit the Grapevine, it was just past midnight. For those who don't know, the Grapevine is one of the steepest, most winding stretches of Interstate 5. It's beautiful during the day, but at night, it's eerie, the kind of place where you can't help but feel alone. There weren't many cars on the road that night, just us, the occasional set of headlights, and miles of darkness. I remember thinking how quiet it was, almost too quiet, but then I noticed something in the rearview mirror. At first it was just a pair of headlights, nothing unusual, but they were moving fast, too fast. Within minutes the lights were right behind us, blindingly bright, and that's when I heard it, the roar of an engine, loud and angry, like it was right on top of us. Then came the horn, a long, deafening blast that made Mary jump out of her seat. I glanced in the mirror and my stomach dropped. It was a semi-truck, huge, old, and rusted. Its headlights were flickering, and it was swerving between lanes like the driver had no control. It was right on our tail, and it wasn't slowing down. "Mary Jim, do something. It's going to hit us." I floored it, but the truck stayed right behind us. No matter how fast I went, it kept pace, its horn blaring and headlights flashing like some kind of nightmare. Mary was screaming, and I was gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Then the truck swerved into the next lane. For a second I thought it was trying to pass us, but I was wrong. It was trying to sideswipe us. I jerked the wheel to the right, veering onto the shoulder. The tires screeched, and for a moment I thought we were going to flip, but somehow we stayed on the road. The truck didn't follow. Instead, it roared past us, its horn blaring one last time as it disappeared around the bend. Mary and I sat there for a moment, trying to catch our breath. The truck was gone, and for the first time in what felt like hours, the road was quiet again. We started driving, slower this time, and a few minutes later, we rounded the same bend the truck had disappeared around. That's when we saw it. There it was. The same semi-truck that had been chasing us, its rusted frame, its shattered headlights. It was mangled against the rock wall, engulfed in flames. But something didn't make sense. The crash looked old. The fire was dying down, and the emergency crews didn't seem to be in a hurry. It was like they'd been there for a while. I got out of the car and approached one of the paramedics. I asked him what had happened, and his answer sent chills down my spine. He said the crash wasn't recent. The truck had been there for over a week, and the driver, he died on impact. I couldn't believe it. There was no way. That truck had been chasing us. Its horn, its headlights, the way it almost ran us off the road. But the paramedic insisted. He even showed me the police report. Mary and I just stood there, staring at the wreck. The flames flickered, casting eerie shadows on the rock wall, and in that moment, I felt it. A cold, heavy presence, like someone or something was watching us. We never spoke about it after that night, but sometimes, when I'm driving alone, I think about that truck. I wonder if the driver is still out there, tearing through the grapevine, chasing down anyone who dares to cross his path. So, if you ever find yourself on that highway late at night and you see headlights in your rearview mirror, pray it's just another car, because sometimes the road remembers, and so do the ones who never made it home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there, and keep your eyes on the road.